This is a sound industrial video.
For instance, it is permissible to be exposed to 90 decibels for up to 8 hours, while at 115 decibels, your exposure may be no longer than 15 minutes. Sorry about that. We're experiencing some technical difficulties. But did you hear that annoying high-pitched buzz? Did you know that noise-induced damage to your hearing can cause that same kind of ringing in your ears? Well, it can. See, around here, we can just plug in a few cables and our problems are solved. But in real life, damage to your hearing can be permanent. And it'll cost you a lot more than a little inconvenience. I'm Tim Wright, and this is Real Life. Real life.
Real Life with your host, Tim Wright.
Since the beginning, humans and other earthbound creatures have enjoyed the use of ears. But are we taking them for granted?
It may look painful, but damage to your outer ear is not nearly as costly as damage to your inner ear.
The human ear. The ear consists of 3 sections. The outer ear, it's here that the sound waves are channeled down into the ear canal. Come on, follow me. Next is the middle ear.
A battle for Middle Ear has begun.
No, I think you're looking for Middle Earth, not Middle Ear.
Oh, sorry.
Where was I? Oh, right, the middle ear. It's here where the sound waves hit the eardrum, causing it to vibrate. The vibrations then pass through 3 tiny connected bones and onto the fluid-filled cochlea of the, you guessed it, inner ear. This is where the magic happens. Tiny hair cells line the cochlea and change the vibrations into nerve impulses. Nerve impulses are then transmitted to the brain, which in turn interprets these impulses as sounds.
Uh-oh. Sounds like somebody's into rock and roll. Let's watch what happens when the hair cells are exposed to this kind of noise level. See how they lose some of their resiliency? Now, granted, it may only be temporary. The hair cells may bounce back. But with continued exposure, the hair cells lose their ability to recover, and the damage becomes permanent.
Hey, Mr. Wright, you're wanted on set.
What's that? Say what? I'm sorry, you're gonna have to speak up. I don't read lips.
Now you know how the human ear works, and you should have a basic understanding of how damage to your hearing occurs.
Okay, here we go. Let's get ready for action.
And as you just witnessed in that exchange with the crew member, a loss of hearing can be very frustrating, not only to you, but to your family, friends, and coworkers who constantly have to shout or repeat themselves.
Hey, can you say that a little louder, Sonny? I can't hear you.
I said who constantly have to shout or repeat themselves. But here's the good news. Noise-induced loss of hearing is completely, totally, positively, absolutely preventable, provided you take the necessary steps to protect yourself. It all begins with what I call the 3 A's.
Awareness, attitude, action.
The 3 A's to hearing conservation: awareness, attitude, and action. It's just like in real life. Real life. Being aware of the dangers around you and having the right attitude about your personal well-being leads you to take the necessary actions to protect yourself.
Awareness.
We know the mechanics of how hearing loss occurs, but what are some of the causes? But first, a quick lesson in decibels.
Oh, hey, dude, I know about decimals. I just downloaded the latest version of Annihilation 3.0. Like, that point between like the 3 and the O, like, dude, that's a decimal.
And what do you call that point on your head?
Dude, this game rocks. Never mind.
As you know, we're not talking about decimals, but decibels. Decibels are used to measure the intensity of a sound. At 20 decibels, you may not even be able to hear the ticking of my watch. But being that I have to shout to be heard, this video game is probably over 85 decibels. OSHA calls this the action level.
Action level? But I'm only on level 4. I hadn't even got to the part where the space demon's eggs hatch. Talk about action, dude.
Awareness, attitude, action.
Yes, I do want to talk about action, but first, let's talk about attitude.
Hearing protection. Don't need it. Those boys who work over in the grinders. That's who you should be talking to all day long, that wah, wah, wah. You won't hear that kind of incessant racket over in our part of the plant.
Remember, safety is an attitude, and when it comes to protecting your hearing, safety first is the only attitude to have. Take a moment and listen to your work environment. Yes, the continuous noise of those grinders or lathes is a hazard to your hearing. But what about the impulse noises, like the punch press or the pile driver? There are a variety of sounds that can cause hearing loss. Even off-the-job activities like hunting or woodworking, attending car races or rock concerts. To think it can't happen to you is the wrong attitude. To protect you from hearing loss, OSHA has issued a hearing conservation standard that applies when noise exposure meets or exceeds an average of 85 decibels over an 8-hour shift. Time limits on exposure will adjust as the noise level varies. For instance, it is permissible to be exposed to 90 decibels for up to 8 hours, while at 115 decibels, your exposure may be no longer than 15 minutes. In any case, when noise exposure exceeds an average of 85 decibels, your employer is required to implement a hearing conservation program. This will consist of several things. First, you will be given a baseline audiogram. This will test your level of hearing in each ear. You will then be tested annually to determine if any significant change in your hearing has occurred. The noise in your work area can also be monitored using a sound level meter or dosimeter. This way, your employer can make sure you're fitted and trained with proper hearing protection at all times. The noise in your workplace can be reduced and sometimes eliminated by administrative controls. Operating certain types of machinery on a shift when fewer people are present, or rotating you out of a noisy area for a part of your shift to reduce time of exposure. Engineering controls can be used as well, such as isolating noisy machinery in sound-absorbing rooms. Carpet, sound-damping walls, and baffles can also be put in place. But regardless of what measures your employer takes to reduce noise exposure, there's only one person truly responsible for protecting your hearing.
Sergeant Major Tim reporting for duty, sir.
No. The one person responsible for protecting your hearing is you. And it's the actions you take that will make all the difference.
Action.
You're aware of the hazards you face on the job. You've got a safety-first attitude. Now it's time for the most important of the 3 A's. Action. It's your hearing that's at risk. What are you going to do to protect it? By properly wearing and maintaining protective equipment, you greatly reduce your risk of hearing loss. There are 2 types of personal protective equipment for your ears: earplugs and earmuffs. Most earplugs are soft fiber or foam and conform to fit the shape of most ear canals. They must be properly positioned well into the ear canal to effectively seal it off. Earplugs can be disposable or reusable. Custom molded earplugs are available and if maintained properly can last for up to a year or more. When inserting earplugs, always make sure your hands and earplugs are clean. If dirt and moisture get in your ear, an infection can result. Earmuffs consist of ear cushions and cups which are attached to a headband. Your entire ear should fit within the cup and the headband should fit snugly against the top of your head. Be sure your hair is pulled back out of the way and that anything else that could affect the seal, such as earrings or hair clips, are removed. Hard hats and glasses or goggles can also affect the seal. Earplugs may need to be worn instead of earmuffs specifically designed to be worn with hard hats. For best protection, earplugs and earmuffs can be worn together. Your employer will provide the necessary equipment and training, but it's up to you to use and maintain them properly. Here are some tips. Wash reusable earplugs with soap and water at the end of each day. Dry thoroughly and store in a closed container. Replace earplugs when they're cracked or no longer pliable. Wipe earmuffs clean as often as necessary, or at least once a week. Wash foam inserts and rubber cushions with soap and water when soiled. Replace worn cushions, bent headbands, and flaking foam inserts. Faulty equipment equals faulty protection. Do not share your hearing protection with others. And never remove or adjust them in a high noise area.
Awareness. Attitude. Action.
It's the 3 A's to hearing conservation. Awareness of the hazards around you. Is the noise level in your workplace exceeding OSHA standards? Are administrative and engineering controls in place? Can more be done to reduce or eliminate noise? Here are some ways you can help. Use rubber cushions or cardboard at the end of line chutes. Replace noisy metal parts with quieter plastic or rubber components. Eliminate vibration noise by placing heavy equipment on resilient pads. Make sure equipment is properly maintained. Tighten or adjust large vibrating surfaces such as panels, covers, or guards, and lubricate moving parts, bearings, couplings, and chain drives. By following these suggestions for bringing these problems to the attention of your employer, you're demonstrating a safety-first attitude.
When you properly wear and maintain all recommended protective equipment, you're protecting yourself against permanent damage to your hearing.
The 3 A's: awareness,
Attitude and action.
it's as simple as that. Because in real life, whether it's listening to ducks quacking in the park, or a trip to the symphony, or a simple chat with a friend or family member, there's a lot at stake when you put your hearing in harm's way. You've just seen some of the causes of hearing loss and the ways in which you can protect yourself. Now let's put what you've learned to the test. In this next segment, we're going to be putting some of our workers through different scenarios in which they could be risking serious damage to their hearing. Hopefully, with your help, they'll make it through okay. Meet Helen. She's the plant safety officer. It's her job to make sure everyone is following all safety procedures and wearing the proper protective equipment. Uh-oh. Looks like this guy's not paying attention. Thank goodness Helen was there, or he could have suffered a serious eye injury. Well, at least he was wearing his earplugs. But wait a second. What about Helen? Right. Helen should also be wearing hearing protection. Just because her time of exposure was brief doesn't excuse her from wearing protection. Remember, anytime the noise level exceeds OSHA standards, hearing protection is required. This is Rick. He's about to start his shift. He'll be taking over for our last guy on the grinder. See if you can spot anything wrong. Right. You never want to share earplugs or earmuffs with anyone else. Aside from the obvious spread of germs and dirt, you could also be wearing equipment that may not fit as well, providing less protection. Let's give Rick and the worker who is ending his shift another chance. Let's see what happens this time. Good move. Our worker ending his shift remembered to wash his earplugs. He also remembered to dry them, which is another important part of this equation. Very good. Finally, he stored them in a closed container. Now let's see how Rick does. You see what I see, right? You got it. Rick's earplugs were in his pocket and not in a closed container. Did you notice anything else that Rick forgot?
Hands!
Very good. He also failed to wash after shaking hands. Dirt and moisture can get into the ear canal and can result in infection. Now let's see how Helen is making out. Well, it looks like someone had a talk with her. As you can see, she's gotten herself some earmuffs. Because they can be easily removed and put back on, earmuffs are more convenient for those workers who go in and out of high noise levels regularly. But you'll always want to refer to your company's hearing conservation program to make sure you're wearing adequate protection. In this case, earmuffs have been given the okay. Now let's see if Helen has done her homework. So far, so good. You should inspect your hearing protection before each use. Right again. You always want to repair or replace faulty protective equipment. Remember, faulty equipment equals faulty protection. Good job. So remember to make sure that her hair and earrings did not interfere with the seal, and that the headband fits snugly against her head. Now let's see what happens when she enters the plant. Right. You never want to remove or adjust hearing protection while in a noisy environment. And how about Rick? Did you notice the loud vibration? By tightening loose panels, by keeping moving parts lubricated, and by bringing any unnecessary noise to the attention of your employer, the noise level in your workplace can be reduced, and thus reducing the hazards you face. So how do you think you did? Did you use the 3 A's? I hope so, because in here, you get a second chance. But in real life, you only get one. But not to worry. By being aware of the hazards around you, having that safety-first attitude, and taking action to protect yourself, well, you and your ears will enjoy a long, healthy life together, filled with all the wondrous sounds the world has to offer. I'm Tim Wright. Keep it real.